Thanks a lot, Alan.
Thank you. Thanks, Alan.
We really appreciate it.
As quickly as I could go through that, because there's a lot of work that was.
So it's a big hobby.
We still have plenty of time left for this item. I didn't want to shorten it too much. If council members do have any questions.
Councillors?
Well, I guess has any of your thinking changed in 4 years?
I think it's interesting that, well, I guess a couple of points. One is that the ferry traffic is something that obviously needs to be monitored with BC Ferries raising rates and looking at things. So I think building flexibility in is important. And I'm not sure that we did it absolutely right, by the way. This isn't meant to be the perfect plan. No planning exercise is meant to be perfect. This is just meant to help walk us through things in the future. I guess one point I would make, though, is that we, some of the people on the island mentioned that the population is a little more stagnant now, and that maybe we've reached a plateau, and maybe that's good. I'm not sure. We all have our points of view on that. But I think if you really step back, for those of you that have lived here a long time and look at the Cove is declining. The Cove is going in a direction that is actually not the way it was even 15 years ago. There's less activity. There's great vibrancy when we have events, like a couple of weeks ago, but day to day, there's less vibrancy. And I think if we actually made that place into a great place, we have so much expertise on the island to do that, that would maybe change the way people think about the island. It would change maybe how many people are here as well. And I think it's something that is long past the time to actually focus on properly.
Well, that very first slide you got on the economic, or the diversity of the housing plots, I mean, and the number of people that come over here to work every day. If we don't do some of this densification and more affordable housing and diverse housing, the seniors have to leave because they can't stay in their large houses and large properties, and the younger people can't afford to. And what we're starting to find is that we're having more and more people buying places as second homes, and they show up a couple of times a year. They're not part of the fabric of the community.
One of the other things that I've heard recently is that maybe the whole idea of what the island is at present is not what it actually is. For example, I understand that in studies done across Canada, that you can say people move to Calgary for a job, and they move to Toronto maybe for the same sort of thing, and in Montreal. On the other hand, Vancouver is not so much job-oriented as it is a destination. Mm-hmm. And what's wrong with Bowen Island being a destination? Which would require a little bit of a change in the way people think about the island. But a lot of things could be done with that idea. And is it necessarily bad to have a village or a town or an island that is a destination? I'm going to say resort, but I think resort covers a whole spectrum of things. Because we have wonderful things on this island that should interest people from all over, whether it's hiking or fishing or golfing or the Cove if it was properly developed or redeveloped. And if we thought beyond sort of no, you can't touch anything ever, if we change that kind of thinking into what is this place and what could it become? Yeah, that's really hard. I know it's hard to do, especially on this island.
Yeah, it's hard to do for sure. But it's interesting because Granville Island is an example of a place that was run down. It wasn't very active. The interesting thing about Granville Island, though, I'll give you a couple of things about it. One is that it works on a local basis first. So yes, it's a destination, so what you're talking about. But Granville Island is first and foremost part of the city of Vancouver. The second part of that is because it works so well that way, it's an attraction. It's the second most visited place in Canada. 11.5 million people go to Granville Island every year. It's second only to Niagara Falls.
Can you separate that number in terms of the people that live in Falls Creek and so forth also?
I can't.
They also go there every day to
Yeah.
do their shopping and,
Yeah.
and purchasing stuff.
Yeah, but if you look at, you know, and we have statistics for Pacific Center, for instance, it's not the same. So there's clearly, and we all know, there's clearly a tourist aspect to Granville Island as well. But my point is, I don't want this to turn into the place where 11 million people come in. No, I'm sure nobody does. And it has to be way smaller than that. But the point is, if you make it vibrant for the people that live here first, that we can all participate in the life of a community, that's attractive.
Yes.
Simple.
Well, everything in Alan's plan, I mean, if I'm just looking at the vision statement in the OCP. We want a population that's diverse in income, age, and lifestyles, varied and affordable housing options, many people active in community life, well-protected natural green spaces, vibrant, resilient local economy that enhances social well-being while respecting local ethic of self-reliance, conserving land, air, water, and energy, and the ecological footprint. It's all covered off.
Every single one.
And same with the 12 fundamental goals. So there's some tweaking and things that can be done.
Well, there's a lot of tweaking because
Yeah.
things evolve through time, but it needs people to participate. I mean, you know, I've simply walked away in the last 5 years because nobody paid any attention, and that was quite disappointing. So I must say I'm very reserved about even coming here today, but I thought it was something worth sharing for people, and hopefully everybody else thinks about it.
Well, following up on the comment, I have a few questions with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When did the planning, your planning actually start?
2007.
2007. So that took 2 years and then was done in 2008.
Yeah, it was less than 2 years, I think, in total.
Yeah, it was finished in 2008.
January 24th, 2008 was your title for your summer presentation. Was that
Right.
correct?
So was there an expectation, hopefully a shared expectation between council and your team, what would happen?
Initially, when we started, there was a ton of enthusiasm on council, and with there were a lot of working groups at that time, like the Surplus Lands Working Group. There was great enthusiasm to take this to the public and begin discussions. And like, I don't have an ego about this image being what the Cove looks like. I just wanted to have the discussion. And I think everybody was up for that at the time. For some reason, that particular council, by the end of their first mandate, began to pull back from all of that. And they pulled back from this. You may remember David Hawking. He was in conflict with the council at that time for that very reason. They pulled away from him. He was a big supporter of this, to the point where he left the island. So I can't guess what happened exactly at that moment, but something happened.
So obviously no effort was made not only to implement but not even to invite the public to comment.
Yeah, there was this presentation more or less was made
But it wasn't
in the
really
gallery,
public.
and you were there.
Yeah, but
It
it was
wasn't
not,
really-
if
It
you
was
allow me
invited.
to
I was going to
finish
explain
my
the
question.
meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
So-
invited.
There was no real public scrutiny. And now, you mentioned a few times, well, there was so much controversy,
Mhm.
and I'm quite wondering if there is so much controversy.
That's a good point. I'm only taking it from private conversations with council, and some of the reaction that evening in that room. So I don't know. I didn't do a full.
This council facing the situation where they actually have to try. I mean, you used all the right language. You did everything the people demanded, sustainability, green, community, all this. But there was no effort to actually test it if the public would be behind it.
That would be accurate.
So I can only conclude the question was not asked because they knew that the public would approve.
Speculation could be.
If you do all the right things but you weren't allowed to ask, then what conclusion could you come? So if that is the case, or we could speculate, then I would say our council would be well advised if we put it to the test. Just put it to the test. And then let's see where the chips fly or fall. Because I see so much tremendous energy and competence and skills that I take as a given, but there is personal passion in there.
There was.
Yes, and I was surprised that you were actually willing to come today, and I appreciate that. But thank you.
I mean, I think a couple of us, we were very, very disappointed because it was a fabulous presentation, and that was not a public meeting. It was a presentation to council, and all the working groups were invited, the Cove Bay Water, the Sun Cove Sewer, and the Ferry Advisory Committee, and the APC, and I guess we still had the Sustainable Advisory Committee at that point. So that was the group. So it was not taken to a public. And I know one of the things that I put in my campaign brochure the next election was that I wanted that taken to the public. And I had people coming up to me who were at that meeting who said, it was a public meeting and the public didn't like it. We took it to the public. Well, we never took it. So I would really like to. That's why I was hoping, and I'm so glad Alan came today.
So Alan, would you be participating in taking this to the public?
I honestly have to think about that. Yeah. Let's see where council goes first here.
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to ask of Alan?
Just a comment. I've always thought the plan was brilliant on a whole bunch of different levels. And thank you for coming to make the presentation. Like Wolfgang said, I was surprised when you said you were coming, but delighted that you decided to do it. So thank you.
Alan? Yeah. I've been struggling a lot looking at little communities beside big cities. Mm-hmm. And that sustainability objective is a real hard nut to crack. I know in the past I've done some work in Alberta looking at Canmore, where they have done a whole bunch of things that were intended for the people in the community, but being so close to Calgary, one of the things that's happened is a lot of that affordable housing that was produced in Canmore was bought up by people in Calgary as a summer or winter residents, because they were closer to skiing and that kind of thing in Banff. Now, that's the lead up to my question about your examples that you looked at. And did you find small communities close to a big city that went through some of these things that you're advocating, affordable housing and that kind of thing, and growing the community to the village to accommodate the community, mm-hmm. and with success? Because I keep on seeing that and the thing about it is, when you live beside a big city, there's going to be plays, movies, musicals, and work that is over there. And to find a way of getting less than half the people that living in the community commuting. You know, there's people that work in Vancouver that are living in Squamish now, and so that's one of the realities of living by a big city. So my question. Well, I've said my question.
There's no simple answer. I mean, the truth is, Vancouver will always be a destination. It will always, magnetically pull us away from here. But there's so many things as a core community that we found that this community doesn't do as well as other neighboring communities of Vancouver or other big cities. We just have missing teeth. We don't have the full spectrum of things happening here. So that's one thing, and that's very integral into this particular plan, is that we make a truly mixed, vibrant place on the core things that we need as a community. The community center is part of that, of bigger range of businesses and opportunities is part of that as well, for employment, for instance. But the other thing is, I just sat on the Mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force in Vancouver, and there's things as a municipal government that can be done to regulate to some degree the housing types, so that there is affordability built in. And a big part of that, believe it or not, is taking away the parking requirements. When I'm sure Wolfgang or somebody could speak to building a 2 or 3 story wood frame building and having to park 7 cars at $30,000 a spot or something, right? I mean, it's part of the affordability quotient. So there's things that are out there, lessons learned, if you will, in other communities that would be highly valuable to doing that.
But I guess I haven't heard the answer to the problem of having affordable housing and being beside that huge market where people are looking for affordable housing. And you know, especially if you get a grant to build affordable housing, a federal grant or something like that, that housing has to be open to all Canadians or all people in the region and that kind of thing. So my question is if I've got a friend or neighbor that needs affordable housing, how can our community build it so that those people get it and that we look after our community?
Yeah, I know the question, and I don't think you can guarantee it, but I mean, if you look at some of the buildings Wolfgang's built, for instance, I don't have the statistics, but most of the people living upstairs, if not all of them, are from Bowen, I think.
Well, definitely it's a time to take residence here, Bowen Islanders. I've never perceived Bowen Island as being excluded from the rest of Canada. I mean, could you imagine that people in Vancouver would decide only Vancouverites should stay in Vancouver?
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably as myopic as it could be.
I think the marketplace will take some care of that, because not everybody's, I mean, if somebody wants affordable housing and wants to commute to Vancouver every day, it's a bit of a strange equation for them. They've got transportation costs then that they wouldn't otherwise have. I think Bowen, in the studies we did, the Bowen Island affordable housing stuff would provide a lot of housing for Bowen Islanders first. It's fairly clear.
Mr. Henry.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for coming back and giving me an opportunity to catch up on what's going on in the Cove. I've been aware of it, but this is 4 years after that proposal you had. A lot has happened since then,
Yeah.
and perhaps even an OCP has been created. I don't know where everything fits in, but there are assumptions that you've had, first of all, about the so-called park, or intrusion of the park. I think that is a red herring. I don't think the public really cares if you encroach into that park a little bit. It was purely and simply an excuse to oppose any development in Snug Cove and to limit people coming to Bowen Island, creating as many problems as possible. And I would suggest to you that that should be investigated, because I do not think that is a public problem. Secondly, I came here today, could not find a place to park. I parked up in Artisan Square, and I hope to hell it doesn't rain, because I don't fancy walking back up there. Maybe when somebody will give me a ride up the hill there. But the fact of the matter is that at my age, I am not looking forward to riding a bicycle.
Yes, that's true.
And I am not looking forward to walking into Snug Cove. And most of all, I do not care to walk on snow and in rain and the miserable weather we get. So we would be excluded from coming into Snug Cove for virtually anything we wanted to be here. We couldn't bring our automobiles. I can't even get an e-bike that would take me up the steep hills.
We weren't proposing that there were no cars in the Lower Cove. We were just proposing that there was a ring of parking around it so that those people could walk on more occasions.
Well, how far do you think we should have to walk?
Well, I'm not saying you should have to walk. There would be allocated parking in the Cove for all sorts of other types of parking. We could give stickers to elderly people, for instance. That's one option.
Handicap stickers.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, that sounds pretty good. Well, I am handicapped, I can't see, maybe I'm not able to do it. But anyway, I thank you. I'm a skeptic. And I think that skeptics should be accommodated by facts. And I would like to see the real facts about Crippen Park and what is involved. Crippen Park is an amazing place, and this is the outcast, the thing that doesn't count. Crippen Park, if you get out there and really see it, it really is something. Thank you very much.
Eileen Singleton. I want to thank you too. I was very impressed. And the most thing I was impressed for is that you are thinking down the road. This is a very precious island, and some of the previous administrations could only see band-aid solutions. They could not see 20, 30 years down the road. But what I would like to say is, could you not incorporate the South Side Ferry, which seems to be almost falling into your plan of not having the cars in Snug Cove? That's all I wish to say. Thank you.
You know, again, I'd just like to point out this plan is not the be-all and end-all. It's simply a strategy, if you will. So the simple answer is yes, it could be incorporated, but there'd have to be the political will for people to do that. I think we found other ways to accomplish it, but it's possible.
Political will is only in certain areas of ego. The ferries are quite willing to do that for us.
I don't have the money.
Any further?
None of this is going to be in the next year. It is down the road.
Just a couple of things. The community and this new council is eager to see some action, like real action, not commit to further analysis and so forth. Looking at your original study, what you've seen changes in the community, and the general feeling on the community from the community. What do we do? Like 3 things that council could initiate within 2 months that would see the first sort of foot to drop and the second to continue soon thereafter.
Honestly, I'm a bit out of the loop on the local politics. I did write that into the action plan, and I'd have to revisit which of those are still applicable today. But they were meant to be baby steps that led to something reasonably profound. So one thing I would speak to, and I've said a few times in the last few years, is pick a demonstration site, change the rules, take away the parking, you know, allow something to happen as an example for people that's a great example, and that should build
from the private sector.
From the private sector, yeah. But let government enable it.
Just in answer to Don's question, one of the first ones was initiate discussions with BC Ferries regarding their response to the marshalling design and master plan. So his first priority will initiate Cove ferry marshalling, then he had sustainable development, early action items. Initiate discussions with Metro, Wheelands, and the Cove, design and finance ferry marshalling solution which allows multiple configuration. Initiate low-hanging fruit initiatives related to traffic. We've done a no idling bylaw, by the way, so we've done that one. And the OCP did put the square footage type of density in there. So I think we should sit and have a session where we look at this action plan. And BC Ferries, just to set the record straight, has not said they will do it for us. They are quite willing to look at the Snug Cove plan, ferry marshalling on the south side, as long as we as the community are entirely willing to pay for it.
So, just to let you know, Alan, let everybody else know that we are going to ask the Economic Development Committee to deal with ferry marshalling and also the Lower Cove as a means to kickstart some of the ideas that come forward in not just your plan, but probably 30 other plans.
Good.
So, and we're going to ask the Economic Development Committee to get involved. We're asking a lot of our communities. Well, just one more comment, because we got to finish this.
Just a quick question to do with the economics. How much did the plan cost and who paid for it? Your plan?
We were initially engaged to do a siting of the community center, and I believe that was $60,000.
Yes.
We then offered for something like $25,000 to do a master plan of the entire Cove. And as I said at the outset, I bet you it cost our firm $250,000 to do it, because living here, I went to every meeting, I interviewed people. So,
Yeah, was that taxpayer money or did it come from someplace else?
yeah, I believe it was taxpayer
Yes.
money.
Is there anything else that people want to ask Alan? If not, Alan, I really appreciate, first of all, I appreciate meeting you.
Yeah.
We've missed each other
We
a
have,
couple of
yeah.
times.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you filling us in. It gives us a bit more ammunition to move forward and to understand the lower Cove and how it ties into pretty well everything on certainly the Snug Cove. And we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.